The afternoon sun began to hide behind the skyscrapers of New York, painting the sky with orange hues that contrasted with the city's grey tones. William Thompson, 45 years old, drove his Porsche Cayenne down Park Avenue, lost in thoughts that didn't align with his seemingly perfect life. The tech entrepreneur, owner of one of the largest startups in the country, felt an inexplicable void that none of his material achievements could fill. "Mr. Thompson, don't forget the meeting. With the investors tomorrow at 9 a.m. The voice of his assistant echoed through the car's Bluetooth system. "Got it, Emily. I'm already going over the numbers in my head," he replied automatically, his eyes scanning the urban landscape with little interest. The traffic was heavy, as usual at that hour. William drummed his fingers on the leather steering wheel when something caught his attention. On the sidewalk, a pregnant woman was walking with visible difficulty, occasionally leaning against the walls of buildings. Her face showed distress, and even from a distance it was clear something wasn't right. In an impulse he couldn't quite explain, William signaled, pulled over, and rolled down the passenger window. "Ma'am, are you okay? Do you need help?" The woman, who appeared to be around 30 years old, hesitated for a moment, clearly wary. She wore simple but well-kept clothes and held a small bag close to her body. I'm having some contractions," she replied, breathing heavily. "I need to get to the hospital, but I can't find a cab. Please let me help you. I can take you to the nearest hospital," William offered, already opening the passenger door. After a few seconds of hesitation, the pain seemed to outweigh her fear, and she accepted his help. "My name is William Thompson," he introduced himself, trying to make her more comfortable as he maneuvered the car back into traffic. "What's your name?" Olivia Johnson," she replied between deep breaths. "I'm a teacher, or rather I was a teacher," she added with a note of sadness that didn't go unnoticed. "Mount Sinai Hospital or New York Presbyterian Hospital?" he asked, already calculating the possible routes in his mind. "Actually, I need to go to Bellevue Hospital," she replied, a blush coloring her cheeks. "That's where I've been doing my prenatal care through the public health system." William nodded, adjusting his route. During the drive, he glanced out of the corner of his eye as Olivia closed her eyes and took deep breaths with each contraction. There was something about her posture, a quiet dignity even in the midst of pain, that intrigued him. "7 months," she said suddenly, as if answering an unasked question. "I shouldn't be having such strong contractions yet." "Everything will be fine," William assured her, surprising himself with the conviction in his words. "We're almost there." At the hospital, William wasn't content to just drop her off at the entrance. He parked the car and accompanied her to the reception desk, where Olivia was quickly directed for evaluation. As they filled out the intake form, he noticed how her hands trembled slightly. "The baby's father, is he coming?" asked the receptionist, following protocol. "No," Olivia replied curtly, her expression hardening for a moment. "He's not part of our lives." William felt something tighten in his chest. There was a story there, hidden between the lines of that short answer. A story of pain that, for some reason, he felt compelled to understand. "Sir?" The receptionist brought him back to reality. "Are you a relative?" "No, He hesitated for a moment, looking at Olivia as she was being taken into the emergency area. "I'm a friend, and I'll stay here until I know she's okay." Sitting in the waiting room, William took out his phone and cancelled his evening plans. For the first time in years, the numbers, meetings, and deals seemed insignificant compared to the scene he had just witnessed. As he waited for news, he began to reflect on his own life choices, on the emptiness he felt despite having achieved so much. 3 hours passed at the hospital. William alternated between checking emails on his phone and pacing restlessly down the hallway. Finally, a middle-aged doctor approached him with a serious expression on her face. "Are you the one who came with the patient Olivia Johnson?" "Yes, how is she?" asked William, quickly putting away his phone. "We managed to stabilize the contractions, but she will need to stay under observation. The pregnancy presents some risks, and she will require more rigorous monitoring from now on," explained the doctor, consulting her clipboard. "Are you a relative?" "No, actually." William hesitated, realizing how strange the truth would sound. I found her feeling unwell on the street and offered to bring her here. The doctor looked at him with a mix of surprise and admiration. Well, she's asking to see you if you could step in for a moment. William was led to a room where Olivia was lying down, connected to some monitors. Her face was less tense, but there was evident concern in her eyes. "I'm sorry for keeping you here so long," she said as soon as she saw him. "You've already done far more than any stranger would." "Please, call me William," he replied, pulling up a chair to sit beside her. "And don't worry about that. How are you feeling?" Olivia sighed, gently running her hand over her belly. "Better now, but the doctor said I need complete rest. I can't work for the next few weeks." "You mentioned you were a teacher." "Yes," she interrupted, a sad smile appearing on her lips. "I was a literature teacher at a private school in Boston. I loved my job, my students. I had an established life there." William noticed the change in her voice. "What happened?" Olivia stayed silent for a moment, as if deciding how much she could trust this stranger who had helped her. "I met someone," she began, her voice low. "At first, it seemed like a fairy tale. Richard was charming, successful, said all the right things. But gradually, things started to change." She paused, taking a deep breath. William remained silent, respecting her time. "First, it was small things. Jealousy of my friends, comments about my clothes, control over my schedule. Then came the humiliation, the threats, until one day I found out I was pregnant." "And you decided to leave," William said softly. "Yes. I realized it wasn't just about me anymore. I had to protect my child." She touched her belly again. "I quit my job, left my apartment, my friends. I came to New York to start over from scratch." William felt a wave of anger rising within him. "Has he been looking for you?" "He doesn't know where I am, but I'm afraid he has resources, connections. If he finds me..." She paused, leaving the sentence hanging in the air. At that moment, a nurse entered to check the monitors, interrupting the conversation. William took the opportunity to check his messages and found several missed calls from his partner, Michael Anderson. "I need to make a quick call," he said to Olivia, "but I'll be right back if you don't mind." In the hallway, William returned Michael's call. "Where are you?" His partner's irritated voice came through the other end. "We have the dinner with the Chinese investors, did you forget?" "Michael, an emergency came up. I need to reschedule." "Emergency? What kind of emergency could be more important than a $50 million investment?" William looked through the glass door of the room where Olivia was talking to the nurse. "One that made me realize there might be things more important than money," he replied, surprising himself with his own words. Hanging up before Michael could protest, William returned to the room. Olivia was alone again, looking exhausted. "The doctor said I need to have some expensive tests done in the next few days," she commented, concern evident in her voice. "I don't know how I'm going to afford it. I've barely been getting by with the private lessons I teach." William felt something stir inside him, a determination he hadn't felt in a long time. "Don't worry about that right now," he said firmly. "We'll take things one step at a time." Olivia looked at him with suspicion. "Why are you doing this? Why are you helping me?" William thought for a moment before answering. "Honestly, I don't know. Maybe because for the first time in a long while, I feel like I can do something truly meaningful." Night was falling over New York, and the city lights began to glow through the hospital window. In that simple room, two people whom fate had improbably brought together were starting to realize that their lives would never be the same. The next morning, William was in his office on the top floor of one of the most modern buildings on Wall Street. The panoramic view of New York, which used to fill him with so much pride, now seemed different. His thoughts kept drifting back to the hospital, to Olivia and her story. "William, the Chinese rescheduled the dinner for tonight." Michael entered the room without knocking, tossing a folder onto the glass table. "And they're not at all pleased about yesterday's cancellation." "Good morning to you too, Michael," replied William, adjusting his Italian tie. "And what about the results from the last quarter?" "That's what we need to talk about." Michael sat down, his expression tense. "The numbers are excellent, but I've noticed some distractions on your part lately. What happened yesterday?" William stood up and walked to the window. I met someone who made me question a lot of things, Michael. A pregnant woman, a teacher, fleeing an abusive relationship. Oh no, Michael interrupted him, standing up abruptly. I know that look. It's the same one you had when you decided to invest in that crazy solar energy idea that almost bankrupted us 5 years ago. That project was viable. It was just ahead of its time, William defended himself. And this isn't about that. I'm thinking about creating a support fund, something institutional to help women in vulnerable situations. Michael let out a nervous laugh. Have you lost your mind? We're a tech company, not an NGO. The investors are going to freak out when they find out you want to mix our name with domestic violence cases. Since when do we care so much about the investors' opinions? William turned to face his partner. We built this empire from scratch, Michael. We don't need to ask for permission to do what's right. The phone on the desk rang, interrupting the discussion. It was Emily, his assistant. Mr. Thompson, the hospital is on the line. It's about Mrs. Olivia Johnson. William felt his heart race. Transfer it, Emily. He gestured for Michael to leave the room, but his partner remained where he was, arms crossed. Mr. Thompson? The doctor's voice sounded concerned. We have the test results for Mrs. Johnson. The complications are more serious than we anticipated. She'll need specialized treatment, expensive medications. Do whatever is necessary, doctor, William interrupted. Send all the costs to my office. After hanging up, he found Michael staring at him with a look of disbelief. You don't even know this woman, William. How can you be sure she's not a scammer? Have you ever wondered why we've never created anything truly meaningful with all our money, Michael? William shot back. We have one of the largest tech companies in the country, but what's our real legacy? Our legacy is the jobs we've created, the taxes we've paid, the innovation we've brought to the market, Michael argued, his voice rising. We can't save everyone. No, we can't, William agreed, grabbing his jacket. But we can save someone, and that's where we'll start. Leaving the office, William drove to the hospital. On the way, he received a message from his sister, Sophia. Bro, I saw you cancelled Sunday lunch. Mom is worried. Is everything okay? He smiled, thinking about how he would explain his sudden change in behavior to the family. Sophia, a renowned psychologist, would probably have a lot to say about his recent need to help strangers. At the hospital, he found Olivia sitting on the bed, flipping through a worn-out book by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Love in the Time of Cholera, she explained, showing him the cover. I always come back to it when I need hope. And do you need hope now? Asked William, sitting down. The doctors explained the situation to me, she replied, closing the book. I can't accept your help, Mr. Thompson. It's too much money, and Olivia, he gently interrupted her. Money is something I have in abundance. What I lack is purpose. Let me help, not for you, but for me, because for the first time in years, I feel like I can do something that truly matters. Olivia watched him for a long moment, her eyes glistening. I'm scared, she confessed finally. Scared to accept help, and then Richard always said I was nothing without him, that no one else would help me. He was wrong, William stated firmly, and I'm going to prove that to you. At that moment, a nurse entered with the medication, and Olivia quickly wiped her eyes. William watched as she took the pills, thinking about how a decision made in traffic was completely changing his worldview. I need to get back to the office, he said, standing up. But before I go, I want you to have this. He pulled a card with his personal number from his pocket. For any emergency, day or night. Leaving the hospital, William didn't notice the man discreetly photographing him from across the street. In his luxury car, oblivious to the surveillance, he began mentally planning the changes he would need to make in his life and his company. The emptiness he had always felt was beginning to be filled by a purpose greater than himself. The luxurious penthouse in the Upper East Side, which William had always considered his refuge, now felt strangely empty and purposeless. Sitting on his balcony overlooking Central Park, he flipped through a stack of documents about foundations and social projects, while his sister Sophia watched him with a mix of curiosity and concern. So you're really going to do this? Sophia asked, pouring herself more wine. Create an entire foundation because of a chance encounter in traffic? It's not just because of her, Sophia, William replied, not taking his eyes off the papers. Olivia was just the catalyst. How long have you been telling me I need to find a greater purpose in life? Sophia smiled, adjusting herself in her chair. As a psychologist, she had closely followed her brother's journey toward personal fulfillment. And have you told Mom about your new plans yet? Not yet, he sighed, finally looking at his sister. You know how she is. She'll say I'm having a midlife crisis, that I need to settle down, have kids. And isn't that it? Sophia teased, raising an eyebrow. William shook his head, standing up to admire the illuminated city. It's different this time. When I met Olivia, I saw someone who had lost everything but not her dignity. She made me realize how much waste there is in our lives, Sophia. How much we could do with the resources we have. William's phone buzzed with a message from Michael. Emergency board meeting tomorrow at 8 a.m. Don't be late. Has your partner still not accepted the idea? Asked Sophia, noticing the tense expression on her brother's face. Michael only thinks about the numbers, about the investors. He doesn't understand that we can do more, be more, William replied, typing a brief confirmation. The next morning, the meeting room at Thompson Tech was buzzing with whispers and tense glances. William walked in promptly at 8 a.m., finding not only Michael and the board, but also a team of lawyers. What kind of circus is this, Michael? He asked, keeping his voice calm as he took his seat at the head of the table. This is an intervention. William? Michael replied, handing out some folders. Over the past few weeks, you've been making erratic decisions, canceling important meetings, and now you want to risk the company's reputation with a controversial social project. Controversial? William laughed humorlessly. Helping vulnerable people is controversial now. The issue isn't helping, interjected one of the board members, Diana Harrison. It's the exposure for the company. We've seen similar cases drive away major investors. Not to mention, Michael continued, projecting some photos onto the screen, you barely know this woman. Look at these images. You going in and out of the hospital, taking her to appointments. The press will have a field day with this. William felt his blood boil as he saw the photos. Someone had been following him, photographing his movements. Who took these photos, Michael? That's not important, his partner deflected. What matters is protecting the company we built. The company I built, William corrected, his voice sharp. Or have you forgotten who had the initial idea? Who invested the first savings? Who stayed up all night developing the first prototype? A heavy silence fell over the room. Michael seemed to have been slapped. Gentlemen, William continued, slowly rising to his feet, I built this company from the ground up, turned it into one of the largest in the country. We made fortunes, created jobs, developed cutting-edge technology. But what good is all this? Success if we can't use our resources to make a real difference in people's lives. William, be reasonable, Diana pleaded. No one is saying not to help. I just do it discreetly without involving the company's name. No, he replied firmly. No more discreet. No more doing just the bare minimum. I'm going to create this foundation, and it will bear the name Thompson. And if any investor doesn't like the idea of associating their money with a company that cares about social responsibility, maybe they're not the kind of investor we want. Michael stood up abruptly. This is madness. You're going to destroy everything we've built. No, Michael, William replied calmly. I'm finally going to build something that truly matters. Leaving the boardroom, William immediately called his personal lawyer. He needed to understand who was following him, and more importantly, protect Olivia from any unwanted exposure. On his way to his office, he received a message from her. I need to tell you something important. Can you come to the hospital today? Looking out the window of his office, William realized that his life had completely changed in a matter of weeks. The emptiness he had always felt was being filled by something greater than himself, but it also brought with it new challenges and threats he would need to face. The hospital hallway was quieter than usual when William arrived that afternoon. He found Olivia sitting in the armchair of the room, gazing at the urban landscape through the window. There was something different in her expression, a mix of apprehension and determination he hadn't seen before. I got your message, William said, closing the door softly behind him. Did something happen? Olivia turned to face him, her hands unconsciously caressing her belly. Yes, and you need to know everything before you keep helping me. William pulled up a chair to sit close to her. I'm listening. Richard isn't just my ex-partner, she began, her voice trembling slightly. He's Richard Preston, CEO of Preston Enterprises. The name made William straighten in his chair. Preston Enterprises was one of the largest construction companies in the country, known both for its luxurious developments and its controversial political connections. I met Richard when I was hired to give private lessons to his niece, Olivia continued. At first he was charming. He introduced me to a world I had never known. Dinners at expensive restaurants, first-class trips, luxurious gifts. But there was always something off. What kind of thing? Asked William, feeling a knot form in his stomach. Documents he asked me to sign without reading, strange meetings at his house, suspicious people. When I questioned him, he said, it was normal in the construction business, but then, she hesitated, taking a deep breath. I found some files on his computer, spreadsheets, contracts, evidence of overbilling in public works. William ran his hand over his face, beginning to grasp the gravity of the situation. Do you have copies of those documents? Yes, Olivia replied in a low voice. I saved everything on a flash drive before I ran. It was my insurance, you know. But now it's not just my life that's at stake. She caressed her belly again. That's why you came to New York. Exactly. But it's not just that. She continued, her eyes welling up. Yesterday, a nurse showed me a magazine. Richard is getting married next month to a senator's daughter. The wedding of the year, according to the Society column. He's building this image of a family man while having people follow you, Raphael finished, recalling the photos from the meeting. Helena looked at him, alarmed. What do you mean, follow me? Raphael hesitated for a moment before telling her about the photographs shown by Michael. The color drained from Helena's face. My God, she whispered. He found me. I need to get out of here. I need to... Calm down, Raphael interrupted, gently holding her hands. No one is going to hurt you. I'll arrange private security right away. You don't understand, Raphael, she shook her head. Richard has people everywhere. In politics, in the police, even in the judiciary. Why do you think I never reported it? No one would believe a teacher against one of the most powerful businessmen in the country. At that moment, Raphael's phone vibrated. It was a message from his private investigator. Urgent information about Michael Anderson. I need to see you. In person. Helena, Raphael said after a moment of reflection, trust me. I'm getting you out of here today. I have a house on Cape Cod in Martha's Vineyard. It's safe, secluded, with all the facilities you need. But what about the treatment? The doctors said I need constant monitoring. I've already thought of that. I'll hire a private medical team. My sister Sophia knows the best professionals in New York. Olivia watched him for a long moment, as if trying to decipher his true intentions. Why are you doing all this? You're risking your reputation, your company. Because for the first time in my life, I'm doing something that truly matters, William replied with conviction. And because maybe together we can bring justice. Outside the hospital, the sun was beginning to set, painting the New York sky with shades of orange and red. William made a few calls, setting in motion a plan that would not only change his life and Olivia's, but potentially expose one of the largest corruption schemes in the country. In his office at Preston Enterprises, Richard Preston looked at a recent photograph of Olivia leaving the hospital, accompanied by William. His cold smile didn't reach his eyes as he murmured to himself, "So this is where you've been hiding, my dear, and it seems you've found a new protector." The house in Martha's Vineyard was far more than Olivia had imagined. Located in a secluded area of the island, the property was protected by a state-of-the-art security system and surrounded by dense vegetation that ensured total privacy. From the main balcony, you could see the sea crashing against the rocks, creating a constant and comforting melody. The medical team will arrive early tomorrow, William explained as he showed her around. Dr. Emily Carter, who will oversee your prenatal care, is one of the best obstetricians in the country. Sophia has known her for years. Olivia ran her fingers over the marble countertop in the kitchen, still trying to process the drastic change in her life. "All of this feels surreal," she murmured. "A few weeks ago I was giving private lessons in a tiny apartment. Mr. Thompson," a deep voice interrupted the moment. It was John, the head of the security team that William had hired. "Perimeter secured. We installed extra cameras at the points you requested." William nodded, satisfied. "Great. And what about the shifts?" 3 teams rotating in 8-hour shifts, all ex-special forces as requested. No one enters or leaves without our authorization. As John walked away, Olivia approached the window, watching the guards discreetly positioned around the property. "You've thought of everything, haven't you?" "Almost everything," replied William, checking his phone. "I still need to meet with my investigator in New York. He found something about Michael that he couldn't discuss over the phone." "Do you think your partner is involved with Richard?" "I don't know," William frowned. "But those photos, someone is watching us and Michael knew about them." William's phone rang. It was Sophia. "Bro, you won't believe this." His sister's voice sounded frantic. "Remember that patient of mine who works at the records office? She just told me that Richard Preston requested a search for property records under Olivia's name." William felt a chill. "He's trying to track her down." "There's more," Sophia continued. "He also asked for information about your properties, all your registered real estate." "How did he find out about the connection?" William murmured, more to himself than to Sophia. "I need to hang up. Let me know if you hear anything else." After ending the call, William found Olivia watching him with concern. "You should go," she said softly. "Your investigator is waiting, and the longer you stay here, the more suspicion you'll raise." "You're right," he reluctantly agreed. "John and the team are on standby. If anything happens, call me immediately." On the trip back to New York, William couldn't stop thinking about how drastically his life had changed in such a short time. The helicopter flew over the Appalachian Mountains, and he watched the sun setting on the horizon when his phone buzzed with a message from Michael. "We need to talk. It's about Olivia. I have information you need to know." William ignored the message. First, he needed to meet with his investigator. At the discreet restaurant where they had arranged to meet, Robert, the investigator, was already waiting at a reserved table in the back. "What did you find out?" William asked, cutting straight to the point. "Michael has been meeting regularly with a lawyer from Preston Enterprises," Robert replied, sliding an envelope across the table. "Here are the photos of the meetings, bank statements, everything." William examined the contents of the envelope, feeling his stomach sink. The bank transfers were substantial. "There's more," Robert continued. "I found records of an offshore account in Michael's name in the Cayman Islands. The deposit started about 3 months ago." "Exactly when I started talking about creating the foundation," William concluded, the pieces falling into place. "Your partner is selling information, Mr. Thompson, and from what I've found, it's not the first time." William closed his eyes for a moment, absorbing the impact of the betrayal. When he opened them again, there was a steely determination in his gaze. "I need you to keep investigating. I want to know everything about the connections between Michael and Preston Enterprises, and most importantly, I want to know who else is involved." Leaving the restaurant, William decided not to return to his apartment. Something told him he needed to be cautious. Instead, he drove to Sophia's house. "You were right," he said to his sister as soon as she opened the door. "Michael is betraying us, and now I need your help for what I'm about to do next." Sophia watched him with a mix of concern and curiosity. "What do you have in mind?" "I'm going to use their own weapons against them," William replied, a plan beginning to form in his mind. "But first, I need to protect what matters most." In Martha's vineyard, Olivia watched the night sea from the balcony, one hand on her belly, whispering promises of protection to the baby she carried. Little did she know that, at that very moment, both William and Richard were crafting plans that would forever alter the fate of everyone involved. Sophia's office was bathed in the dim light of early evening when she finished listening to her brother's plan. William had spent the last 2 hours detailing every aspect of his strategy, and now he anxiously awaited his sister's opinion. "It's risky," Sophia commented, adjusting her gold-framed glasses. "But it could work. The timing needs to be perfect." "That's why I need your help," William replied, standing up to pour more coffee. "Michael doesn't suspect you. No one. Suspects the family psychologist." Sophia smiled, a smile that mixed pride and concern for her brother. "You know this will change everything, right? Not just for you and Olivia, but for the entire company." "The company has already changed, Sophia. At the moment William decided to betray us, he changed everything." William paused, gazing at the city through the office window. "Besides, some changes are necessary." William's phone vibrated. It was a message from Olivia. "Dr. Emily Carter has arrived. She wants to run some tests early tomorrow. Is everything okay?" He replied quickly, assuring her that everything was going as planned. Then he checked his other messages. Michael had tried calling 5 times. "It's time to put the plan into action," William said, putting his phone away. "Do you know what to do?" Sophia nodded, grabbing her bag. "I'll schedule dinner with Michael and Emily for tomorrow. They won't suspect an invitation from me to celebrate his early birthday." "Perfect." Meanwhile, William was interrupted by a new message, this time from John, the head of security in Martha's Vineyard. "Suspicious activity at the marina. 2 boats without proper identification docked an hour ago." William felt his heart race. "I need to go to Martha's Vineyard, now." "No," Sophia grabbed his arm. "That's exactly what they want. If you show up there now, you'll confirm that Olivia. Saya's at the house. John and the team can handle it." Reluctantly, William agreed. His sister was right. He needed to keep a cool head. He sent detailed instructions to John and activated the emergency protocol he had established. The next morning, William arrived early at Thompson Tech. The office was still practically empty when he walked into Michael's room. "We need to talk," he said to his partner, who seemed surprised by his presence. "William, I was actually trying to reach you about Olivia." "No," William interrupted him, his voice calm but firm. "You're going to listen to me now." He placed the envelope containing the evidence gathered by Robert on the table. "Care to explain this?" Michael paled as he saw the photos and bank statements. "This isn't... You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," William continued, sitting down. "I understand that while I was building something bigger than us, you were selling information to Richard Preston. The question is, why?" "He approached me," Michael began, his voice trembling slightly. "He said you were losing focus, that we needed to protect the company. The deposits were just consulting fees." "Consulting?" William laughed humorlessly. "Is that what you call selling information about a pregnant woman to her abusive ex-partner?" Michael shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "William, be reasonable. This woman came out of nowhere, and within weeks you're already changing your entire life for her. How can you not expect people to be suspicious?" "People or you, Michael?" William leaned forward. "Because from where I stand, the only one acting suspiciously here is you." At that moment, William's phone rang. It was Dr. Emily Carter. "Mr. Thompson, we've finished the tests. I need to inform you that..." She hesitated. "Well, we found something that you and Mrs. Olivia need to know." William felt his heart tighten. "Is it serious?" "Not exactly, but it's better if we talk in person. And Mr. Thompson, she's been asking for you." Hanging up the phone, William turned his attention to Michael, who was watching him with a mix of fear and curiosity. "This isn't over," he said, standing up. "We have a dinner tonight at Sophia's house. I suggest you show up and bring Emily. There's much more we need to discuss." Leaving the office, William made a quick call to Robert, confirming that the second phase of the plan was underway. Then he called for his helicopter. He needed to get to Martha's Vineyard as soon as possible. During the flight, he couldn't stop thinking about the tone in Dr. Emily's voice. What had she discovered? And more importantly, how would it affect his plans to protect Olivia and expose Richard's illicit activities? The helicopter was flying over Cape Cod Bay when his phone buzzed with a message from Sophia. "Everything is ready for tonight." Michael confirmed his presence. "But there's something you need to know about Emily." William looked out at the sea below, thinking about how so many lives had become so intricately intertwined in such a short time. What had started as a simple act of kindness had turned into a complex web of secrets, betrayals, and revelations. And something told him that the biggest surprises were yet to come. The living room of the house in Martha's Vineyard was quiet as Dr. Emily Carter explained the test results. Olivia was sitting on the couch, with William by her side, both absorbing every word from the doctor. "They're twins," announced Dr. Emily, showing the ultrasound images, "and that's one of the reasons for the complications you've been experiencing. Multiple pregnancies require extra care." Olivia placed her hands on her belly, silent tears streaming down her face. "2 babies. That's why the symptoms have been so intense from the start." William held her hand, feeling an emotion he couldn't quite explain. "Are they okay? Are there any risks?" "With proper monitoring and absolute rest, the chances are very good," the doctor replied. "But I need to be clear. Olivia cannot be under any kind of stress in the coming weeks. Her blood pressure is at the upper limit of what's acceptable." At that moment, William's phone buzzed with a message from Sophia. "Urgent. Emily just came to see me at the office. She has information about Richard that could change everything. I need to take care of some things in New York," William said after Dr. Emily left. "Will you be okay?" Olivia nodded, still processing the news about the twins. "It's strange. I spent so much time afraid of the future, and now I discover that I carry 2 lives within me. The universe has a peculiar sense of humor." "I'll make sure the 3 of you have a secure future," William promised, kissing her forehead before leaving. In Sophia's office, Emily waited nervously. Her usually confident demeanor was visibly shaken. "She worked with me," Emily said, as soon as William walked in. "Olivia, she was my daughter's private tutor before she started working with Richard's niece." William sat down, surprised by the revelation. "Why didn't you say this before?" "Because Richard threatened me," Emily replied, her voice trembling. "He found out I helped Olivia get the documents. I was the one who warned her about the files on his computer." Sophia observed the scene, in silence, her professional skills detecting the sincerity in Emily's fear. "So you knew everything from the start," William concluded. "That's why you accepted all the schedule changes, the cancellations." "I wanted to protect her," Emily wiped away a tear. "Olivia was more than a tutor to my daughter. She helped us through a very difficult time when my ex-husband—" She paused, taking a deep breath. "Let's just say she understands abusive relationships well." William's phone rang. It was John again. "Sir, more suspicious activity at the marina. And this time it's Richard's men, positively identified." "Keep the surveillance doubled," William ordered. "No one gets near the house." Turning his attention back to Emily, he asked, "What else do you know about Richard's business?" "Enough to bring him down," she replied, pulling a flash drive from her bag. "I copied everything before Olivia left Boston. Account numbers, names of politicians involved, bidding schemes. It's all here." "Why are you helping us now?" "Because I'm tired of being afraid," Emily replied firmly. "And because Richard is planning something big. He won't stop until he gets what he wants." Sophia checked her watch. "Dinner is in 2 hours. Michael and the others should arrive by 8. William nodded, a new plan forming in his mind. With Emily's information and the evidence Olivia had, they could finally corner Richard. But first, they needed to neutralize Michael. The dinner at Sophia's house was impeccably arranged, the table set with the family's finest china, candles lit, creating a cozy atmosphere that contrasted with the tension in the air. Michael arrived, promptly at 8, accompanied by his wife Sarah. He seemed nervous, constantly adjusting his tie. "Where's Emily?" asked Sophia, pouring the wine. "She called saying she's stuck in traffic," replied Michael, avoiding William's gaze. "Interesting," commented William, taking a sip of wine. "Because she's been in my office for 2 hours, collaborating on the investigation into your side activities." Michael dropped his glass, spilling wine on the white tablecloth. Sarah looked at him confused. "What is he talking about, Michael?" "I can explain," Michael began, but was interrupted by the sound of his phone. The color drained from his face as he read the message. "Bad news?" asked William. "Let me guess. Richard found out you couldn't get the information he wanted about Olivia. The sound of the doorbell cut through the tense air. Sophia went to answer it and returned, accompanied by two men in suits. "Michael Anderson?" One of them stepped forward, showing a badge. "We have a few questions about your international financial transactions." William watched the scene unfold, knowing it was only the beginning. In Martha's vineyard, protected by security and the sea, Olivia rested, caressing her now doubly precious belly, unaware that the coming days would bring even more astonishing revelations. The meeting room at Thompson Tech was packed that morning. Journalists from the country's major media outlets eagerly awaited the start of the press conference. William, standing near the window, adjusted his tie while speaking softly with Sophia. "And Emily. Have all the evidence been verified?" he asked for the third time. "Yes," Emily confirmed, holding a folder. "Every document, every transaction. The legal team spent the entire night reviewing everything." Sophia placed a hand on her brother's shoulder. "Are you sure you want to do this now? We could wait." "No," William interrupted gently. "It's time to bring everything to light. Olivia and the babies deserve to live in peace." His phone vibrated. With a message from John. Heavy activity at the port. Richard was seen boarding a speedboat 20 minutes ago. "He's heading to Martha's vineyard," William murmured, feeling his heart race. John read protocol. "No one gets near the house." "Mr. Thompson," his new assistant called out, "we are ready to begin." William walked up to the podium, observing the expectant faces of the journalists. The cameras began to flash as he arranged his papers. "Good morning, everyone," he began. "I have called this press conference to make an important announcement. Thompson Tech has always prided itself on transparency and a commitment to ethics. Today, that commitment leads us to a difficult but necessary decision." At that moment, the doors to the room opened. Richard Preston entered, accompanied by his lawyers. "Sorry for the delay," Richard said with a cold smile, "but I couldn't miss this spectacle." William maintained his composure. "Mr. Preston, what a surprise. I thought you were on your way to Martha's vineyard." A flicker of irritation crossed Richard's face. "I don't know what you're talking about. I'm only here to defend my reputation against the slander you're about to spread." "Slander?" William picked up a remote and activated the screen behind him. "How do you explain these documents?" On the screen, contracts, spreadsheets, and emails detailing overbilling. Schemes and bribes in public works began to appear. The journalists started frantically taking pictures. "Anyone can forge documents," Richard replied, but his voice no longer carried the same confidence. "Is that so?" Emily stood up, walking toward the podium. "I worked with you for years, Richard. I organized your meetings, filed your documents, including those you ordered to be destroyed." The camera flashes intensified. Richard took a step toward him but was restrained by his lawyers. "Mr. Preston," continued William, his voice steady, "we're not just here to expose corporate fraud. We're here to talk about character, about a man who not only stole public funds, but also tried to destroy lives, who pursued and threatened a pregnant woman." "Lies!" Richard exploded, his mask of calm finally slipping. "Olivia was my employee. She stole confidential documents, invaded my privacy." "She uncovered the truth," William corrected, "and had the courage not to stay silent. Now it's our turn to speak." Sophia, who was watching everything, noticed Richard's lawyers whispering nervously. Her phone buzzed with a message from Dr. Emily Carter. "Olivia is fine, but her blood pressure has risen. We're monitoring her." On the screen, more evidence continued to appear. Offshore bank account records, compromising conversations with politicians, even the secret deal with Michael. "This is a circus," Richard tried again, turning to leave. "My lawyers will be in touch." "Your lawyers will have their hands full," William replied, "especially because at this very moment, copies of all these documents are being sent to the federal police, the Department of Justice, and the country's major news outlets." The journalists stood up in a frenzy of questions. Richard stopped. At the door, his back tense. "You don't know who you're messing with, Thompson," he said over his shoulder. "No, Richard," William responded, his voice calm but firm. "You're the one who didn't know who you were messing with when you decided to threaten people I swore to protect." When Richard finally left, followed by a troop of reporters, Sophia approached her brother. "He's going to try something," she murmured. worriedly. "I know," William replied, checking his phone. "That's why we need to act fast. Is the helicopter ready?" "Yes, but..." Sophia hesitated. "There's one more thing you need to know about Olivia. Something Dr. Emily Carter discovered in the latest tests." William looked at his sister, sensing that the surprises of the day weren't over yet. On the screen behind him, documents continued to scroll, telling a story of corruption and power. That was about to collapse, but his mind was already on Martha's Vineyard, with Olivia and the babies who carried not just new life, but also the promise of a different future. The sun was setting over Martha's Vineyard, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, when William's helicopter landed on the property. He found Olivia on the porch, accompanied by Dr. Emily Carter, both watching the natural spectacle. "How are you?" he asked, kissing her forehead. "Better now," Olivia replied, smiling serenely. "I saw the press conference on TV. It was intense." William sat beside her, holding her hand. "Sophia said there was something else I needed to know, something about the latest tests." Dr. Emily Carter stepped closer, her face softened by a smile. "The babies, they're girls. Identical twins. And there's something special about them." Olivia squeezed William's hand before continuing. "They have the same kind of birthmark as I do, right here." She lightly touched behind her ear. "Dr. Emily Carter says it's extremely rare in twins. Like little stars," William murmured, remembering the first time he had noticed the mark on Olivia at the hospital. The moment was interrupted by John, who approached quickly. "Mr. Thompson, we've detected suspicious movement on the North Beach. Several boats are approaching." "Richard," Olivia whispered, immediately tensing up. "Stay calm," William reassured her, noticing Dr. Emily Carter's concerned look. "We expected this. John, initiate the evacuation protocol." As the security team mobilized, William received a message from Sophia. "The FBI is on its way. Keep them busy for 15 minutes. On the horizon, several speedboats were approaching the property. William could see Richard's men positioning themselves on the beach. "Olivia," he turned to her, "trust me. You and the babies will be safe." "I don't want to run anymore," she replied, her voice steady despite her fear. "I've spent too much time running." At that moment, William's phone rang. It was Richard. "Impressive little show today, Thompson." His voice sounded controlled, but with a hint of contained fury. "But you forgot one thing. I always win." "Not this time," William replied calmly. "Look at the sky, Richard." Federal police helicopters appeared over the sea, their powerful spotlights illuminating the speedboats. Sirens began to sound in the distance. "Impossible," Richard murmured. "I had judges, politicians." "Had," William agreed, "until they saw the evidence Emily kept. Until they found out about the secret accounts in tax havens. No one wants to go down with you, Richard." On the beach, Richard's men began to retreat, confused. Police vehicles arrived on the road, blocking escape routes. Olivia watched everything from the balcony, a protective hand on her belly. "Is it over?" "Almost," William replied, watching Richard being taken away in a police car. "We still have a lot of work ahead." 6 months later, the nursery in the house on Martha's Vineyard was decorated in soft shades of green and lavender. Olivia, seated in a comfortable nursing chair, cradled Sophia while William rocked Beatrice. The small marks behind the twins' ears glowed softly in the light of the setting sun. "The foundation approved 10 more projects today," William commented, softly so as not to wake Beatrice. "Support centers in 3 different states," Olivia smiled, proud. The Thompson Foundation for Protection and Support, created after the events of that day, had already helped hundreds of women rebuild their lives. "Michael accepted the plea deal," William continued. "With his testimony and the evidence we had, Richard has no chance of escaping." "And Emily?" "Promoted to executive director of the foundation," William smiled. "No one better than her to understand the needs of the women seeking our help." A soft knock on the door announced the arrival of Sophia, who entered carrying a small box. "Look what I found in Mum's things," she said, pulling out an old newspaper clipping. It was an article about a young teacher who had created a reading project for underprivileged children in Boston. "My first social project," Olivia recognized the photo. "That's how I met your mother, Emily, and so many other special people." "And now you'll be able to do so much more," William commented, gently placing Beatrice in the crib. "The girls will grow up seeing the impact we can have when we choose to make a difference." Olivia stood up to place Sophia next to her sister. The babies slept peacefully, unaware of the extraordinary journey that had brought their parents together. "You know," she said, hugging William as they watched their daughters, "when I fled Boston, I thought I was leaving everything behind. Little did I know I was running toward my destiny." Sophia smiled, discreetly taking a photo of the scene. On the balcony, the sun set over the sea of Martha's Vineyard, just as it had on that decisive day. But now, instead of shadows and threats, the horizon promised only possibilities and hope. "Sometimes," William murmured, kissing Olivia's forehead, "we need to lose everything to find what truly matters." The twins stirred in their cribs, their tiny birthmarks shining like stars, a constant reminder that some encounters are predestined, and that love in its many forms has the power to transform lives and rewrite destinies.